Today we are going to see. What if Sam married a demon he loved? So let's get started. Ruby's huge, brown eyes fluttered open. She looked up and was immediately greeted by the goofy grin possessed by her fiancé, Sam. The tall man flexed a single muscular arm and let his shoulder-length brown hair fall messily around his face. Sam, it's only 6:30, I wanna sleep. Ruby let out a moan and shoved her partner down against the mattress with a small, pale hand. But we're getting married today. He wrapped his arms tightly around Ruby's petite form and attacked her with kisses. The demon smiled and pressed her lips to Sam's. She felt her fingers skid over his toned, muscular chest and tangled her fingers in his long hair. This time tomorrow we'll be married. You'll be my husband, how about that, and you'll be my wife. His hands were firmly planted on her bare back. When are the bridesmaids coming over to get ready with you? 7, I better get some clothes on and go check on Jenny. Genevieve Samantha Winchester was Ruby and Sam's 2.5-year-old daughter. She was going to be her mommy and daddy's little flower girl. Yeah, me too. Dean's coming to pick me up in the Impala at 7 also, so I can get changed into my tux with Dean, Saz, Ben and Bobby at Bobby's place. Sam rose from the bed and pulled a pair of Calvin Klein briefs up his legs. Ruby sat back against the bed head with the sheets tight around her form. She tilted her head at Sam. I still don't get why you're so worried about seeing me in my dress before I walk down the aisle. Since when have we been traditional? You're an ex-hunter who's marrying a demon. I just want to set this relationship off on the right foot. He buttoned up a plaid shirt. Sam Winchester, we have been together, sleeping in the same bed, for over 3 years now. Our relationship started off ages ago. Ruby rose from beneath the sheets and dressed herself in some skinny jeans with a denim blouse. Yeah, I know, but I never thought I'd see a wedding day. I just want to do this right. You're right, but I personally am looking forward to seeing you post-wedding minus suit then during wedding in suit. Ruby had her thumb tucked into the back of the belt of his jeans. Nah, that'll be good, but I want my beautiful blushing bride. Sam lay his hands against Ruby's cheeks and pressed his lips to hers. Ruby leaned against his wide chest and smiled contentedly. Ruby crept into her daughter's room a few steps behind Sam. She watched as the dad scooped up his child and tickled her tummy softly. Ruby rested her back against the doorframe and came to the conclusion that she had made the best decision in the world by telling Sam. When she had first learned of her pregnancy with Jenny, she and Sam had been on a demon blood, let's kill Lilith quest. The brunette couldn't imagine what would have happened to her and their child if he hadn't been as open-hearted and accepting as he was. Sam was excited. He dropped everything, including hunting, just to make sure the baby was safe. Ruby knew that he would never have forgiven her if she slipped off into the darkness with his child and never saw him again. Hey Jenny, are you ready to be a flower girl today? Sam was hugging the 1.5-year-old closely. Yeah, Daddy. Genevieve reached out and tugged lightly at her father's longish hair. It was something that she had done since she was a baby. Sam shook his head. Don't you go messing up my hair today, sweetie, I'm getting married. Jenny stopped and thought this over. Sorry, Daddy. Sam rubbed his nose against his daughter's. Apology accepted, baby. The young parents had fed their daughter breakfast, and after both downing a large cup of espresso they were ready to go their separate ways. Ruby stood in the doorway and pressed her lips to Sam's. It was already time for them to part ways. Dean was waving at the pair from the driver's seat of his 1967 Chevy Impala. Along the bonnet someone, probably Ellen or Lisa, had strung some lines of white ribbon. Sammy, hurry up, Dean Winchester called to his younger brother out of the driver's seat window. Sam smiled and pulled away from Ruby. He flashed her one more white-toothed smile. Next time we'll be standing here together, we'll be married. Ruby rolled her eyes and squeezed Sam's hand one last time before letting go. Lisa, Ellen and Joe should be here soon. You have fun with the guys. Sam gently stroked Ruby's bare forearm. You too, make sure Jenny brings some coloring books or something to the venue. Ruby nodded. Joe's in charge of that, but will do. Love you, Mr. Winchester. You too, future Mrs. Winchester. Dean rolled his eyes. Can we just turn this chick flick off? Sam and Ruby both smiled at each other before Sam climbed into his brother's car. Ruby paused as the doorbell sounded. She helped her 2.5-year-old off of her lap and placed the picture book that she had just been reading down on the coffee table. The petite demon hurried down the hall toward the front door and opened it to reveal Ellen, Joe and Lisa. The Harvells had arrived at the same time as Anne's girlfriend, and Ruby could see 2 cars, a Lexus and a Camry, parked on the curb across the street. Hey, all 3 women greeted the brunette in turn. They were each clutching their bridesmaid dresses. which were protected in clothing bags. Lisa smiled at Ruby, so I brought the dress. You told me not to change at home, right? Because Ben hasn't changed either. Lisa had dropped her 11-year-old son Ben off at Bobby's house about half an hour before. Yeah, you're fine. Ruby ran some fingers through her still bedraggled hair. Sam, Dean, Saz and the other men in the wedding party are all getting changed there, so Ben can as well. Lisa nodded. I still can't believe that today's the day. I've been hearing about this wedding for what seems like forever, and Dean has been non-stop worried about his little brother getting married before him. Dean hunted quite frequently around the area where he lived with Lisa and her son Ben. Ruby shook her head. Sam, much to my surprise, hasn't been worried about this wedding at all. The maid of honor smiled. Well, he shouldn't be worried. You two get along better than basically any other couple that I know. You're not worried, are you? Ruby shrugged. I'm just feeling a bit self-conscious. Lisa tapped her friend on the shoulder. You shouldn't be. You could go in there and marry Sam in what you're wearing now, and he'll still marry you with as much love and admiration. Ruby looked down to her denim blouse and jeans before back up at Lisa. I agree with you there. She paused. So you and Dean, are you considering one of these anytime soon? The taller of the two tilted her head. I haven't really talked about it with him. I still feel as though he needs to tie up some loose ends with all his hunting. I hate it. It's dangerous. All these stupid demons. Lisa paused and examined Ruby, who had just rose her eyebrow. No offense there, I don't mean you. The brunette smiled. None taken. Jo, Ruby's daughter, climbed awkwardly off the sofa and hurried toward the young blonde woman. The little girl toddled uneasily on her feet and wrapped her arms around Jo's long legs. Hey Jenny, Mommy and Dad are getting married today, huh? You excited? Jo scooped up the young girl and held her tightly in her arms. Johanna Beth Harville was 23 and Jenny's babysitter. Yep, I get to throw flowers at Uncle Bobby's house. Jo smiled. Your mom's going to look really pretty in her dress, don't you think? Yeah. Jenny was directing a toothy grin up at Jo. Everything going well? Ellen's southern accent shook Ruby's attention from her daughter. Yeah, Sam's acting all traditional though. He can't bear the thought of seeing me in my dress before I walk down the aisle. Ellen scrunched up her nose. Did he make you sleep in a separate bed to him last night? Because I heard that's all the rage with being traditional. The older woman used her fingers as speech marks. Ruby shook her head. He's not that extreme. He bartender shook out her auburn hair and smiled slowly. I still can't believe that the youngest Winchester is actually getting married, to a demon nonetheless. The petite brunette shrugged. I ever thought I'd see a wedding day either. It isn't traditional for demons to tie the knot. Ellen patted Ruby on the back. You two deserve it. You brought that wonderful daughter into the world, and I hear that Sam is working his ass off at law school trying to get that degree. You deserve a wedding. So champagne for you all. We have to get changed quickly because the hair and makeup people are arriving soon. Ruby thrust a tray of glasses toward the women and passed her daughter a kitty cup filled with apple juice. Ellen and Jo both took their drinks to a spare room where they were going to get changed. Lisa turned to Ruby. You need some help getting that dress on. Ruby smiled and nodded. Yeah, that'd be great. I was going to get Sam to help me get it on, but yeah, bad luck for the future crap. Lisa nodded. I'll just get my dress on and I'll come help you get changed. Okay, I'm just going to help Jenny get changed and Sam in my room. Meet me there. Ruby scooped up the 2-year-old and carried her into the room that she shared with her partner. She couldn't fight the feelings of excitement as she envisioned herself walking down the aisle toward Sam. The brunette sometimes wondered how a relationship, which was wrong to so many people, managed to make her and Sam so happy. She knew she wasn't like the rest of the demons. Mama, will it change? Genevieve asked her a question just as Ruby was helping to take the t-shirt off of her daughter. Will what change, baby? The brunette scooped up the soft flower girl dress from its box and ran her thin fingers over the soft white material. Our life. Will it be different? Jenny was now dressed in her puffy white dress and she was adjusting the loose fabric with her little arms. Ruby shook her head and sat on the double bed beside her daughter. She stroked the child's soft, dark brown hair and pressed a kiss to the child's head. No, Jenny, it'll be all the same. Mama will just have your dad's last name now, okay? Obviously pleased with her answer, Jenny climbed into her mother's denim-covered lap. Good Mama, I just want you and Dada to still love each other. Ruby hung her head down in front of her daughter's face. Getting married means that Mommy and Daddy love each other very much. The brunette was still hugging her daughter when Lisa entered the room. Ben's mother was dressed in one of the Bridesmaid dresses that Ruby had chosen with her bridal party months before. It was silky and white and hung down to just above the knees. It was a strapless cut, like her own wedding dress, and the white strappy pumps matched it exactly. Lisa's long, dark hair hung around her head and her face appeared to be in search of some makeup. So how do I look? Lisa spun around a couple of times and Ruby examined the dress. You look great. She paused and removed her own dress from the coat hanger in the closet. Ooh wow, that looks great. Lisa ran some manicured fingers over the material, so we have to work out how to get it on. Okay, I'll be right out, Ruby called through the bathroom door. The bride had been busying herself by removing her blouse and jeans and replacing her strappy tan bra with a strapless white one. She pulled a creamy satin robe on over her underwear and strolled back into the bedroom. Ruby stood before Lisa, who was seated on the bed. She reached out and took the dress in her hands. It was long and white with lacy flowers embroidered over the fabric. She let the dressing gown fall off of her shoulders and she stepped into the dress. Ruby pulled it up over her short legs and adjusted over her chest so that it covered her strapless bra. Lisa zipped up the back and tied the satin ribbon belt around her waist. Ruby adjusted the top of her dress and strolled over to the floor-length mirror that was positioned on one of the cupboard doors. Wow, the young woman caught a tear at the back of her throat. She looked beautiful. She stood and ran her eyes over her petite little form. This demon looked like an angel. The white fabric flowed down to her bare feet and it was cut perfectly to capture each of her curves. You look wonderful. Sam's going to love this. Lisa stood behind her. Ruby was speechless. She managed a subtle nod and Lisa smiled. You really are going to be a beautiful bride. The two women hugged. You idiot, you're running around like a headless chook searching for an iron. You are marrying a demon. She's not going to notice a tiny crease in your shirt, princess. Bobby stood before Sam in one of the dark, dingy guest rooms in his house. Sam Winchester was getting married today. He wasn't just getting married to just anyone, he was marrying a petite, brunette demon, the mother of his daughter and the love of his life. The young man, his older brother Dean. Their angelic friend Saz and Dean's, not son, Ben had gathered at Bobby's house in order to get dressed in their tuxes. The wedding ceremony was to take place in Bobby's backyard, which had been tidied up by the bridal party and was now looking more like a winter wonderland than a car junkyard thanks to the recent snowfall. Sam stepped forward and peered at his reflection in the mirror. He was dressed in a white shirt with a black tux. He had a white satin tie knotted neatly around his neck and a white handkerchief hanging out from his right-hand side breast pocket. M ran a brush through his shoulder-length brown hair, which was parted neatly in the middle and had a cute little kick at the ends of either side. The young man ran his fingers over the small crease that was now hidden under his tux jacket. He was unsure of where the crease came from, but Bobby didn't seem to have an iron and he decided that maybe it was good luck. The old drunk tapped the young man on the back and shook his head. He passed Sam the boutonniere, made of small white rose buds, and watched as the young man clipped the pin onto his suit. Damn it, boy, I can't believe that you are getting married. Your daddy would be shocked, and I must admit a touch disappointed, about you tying the knot with Ruby. You don't mind though, do you, Bobby? No boy, I'm not. She loves you, even an old drunk like myself can see that. I'm proud of you for settling down with her, raising that devil of a daughter and escaping the life when no one else managed to. Thanks, Bobby. That's okay, ya idiot. Bobby was trying to sound tough, but Sam thought he spied a tear sliding down the old man's cheeks. You want a beer, Mr. Suburban Dad? Dean was leaning against Bobby's little fridge and holding some bottles of beer. Sam shook his head and smiled at his brother. No thanks, Dean, I want to be sober during the most important moment of my life. Have it your way, bro. I'd need a few six-packs if I was in your position. Dean, is this crease noticeable? Sam moved his tux jacket to the side to reveal the small crease. You are acting real OCD, Sam. I didn't even see it and I don't think that demon bride is gonna care. Sam rolled his eyes. She's no demon bride, Dean, and her name is Ruby. Dean shrugged. I know that, Sammy, but I'm not ready to accept my little brother is turning into a married man before me. I already have a kid with her, Dean, and yeah, if you stopped your one-night stands and actually got your act together, maybe you might have gotten married before me. Sam spoke STERNLY and forced an eye roll at his older brother. You look good, Sammy. That suit seems to scream Brad Pitt at me. Sam rolled his eyes. Dean, the tie better be on straight by the time we're walking down the aisle or I won't be impressed. Quote, sorry Sam, we'll fix it up. Sam twisted the silver watch that Ruby had bought him for his birthday around his wrist and smiled. He was going to marry her. He could barely believe it. The hairdresser had just left after working on the hair and makeup of all 4 women. Ruby peered at her reflection quickly in the housestand mirror. Her hair fell in black abs over her shoulders and a veil was clipped in the back of it. Her face was made up subtly with shadowy eye makeup and just a dust of pink lipstick over her thin lips. Some silver dangly earrings hung from her earlobes and a smile spread across her lips. The other demons would hate her now. She flickered her eyes black for a split second before they regained their usual chocolate brown color. "Y'all okay over there, Ruby? You look a little distant." Ellen Harville, now dressed in a white strapless dress and sporting an auburn updo, strolled over to Ruby's side and placed a motherly hand on Ruby's high shoulder bone. "I'm just thinking about Sam. I remember that feeling, well darl, that man loves you beyond all boundaries. I say you're one damn lucky girl." Ellen hugged Ruby quickly. "I wish you the best of luck. Sam, I still have no understanding of why you are marrying this servant of the devil." Castiel was confused. He stepped forward wearing his wedding tux, which was covered, much to Sam's dismay. In his usual beige trench coat. Sam rolled his eyes. "Saw, seriously, do you have absolutely no understanding of love? Just because you have never felt it doesn't mean I won't either. I just don't understand the appeal of dressing up in a tuxedo and performing ancient bonding rituals with this demon just for the sake of it." Woman saws, Ruby is a woman. Castiel nodded. "Sam, best of luck. Dean, does this tux look okay?" Ben Braden asked his mom's boyfriend as he tried to straighten the small suit jacket. "Great, Ben, you're gonna make one kick-ass ring boy." Ben smiled proudly. "Thanks for giving me this opportunity, Dean." "That's fine, Ben, though you should really thank Sammy." "Will do." Dean ruffled the young boy's hair with his hand. "Everyone comfortable in there?" Bobby turned around in the Impala's driver's seat to face the 3 women and 1 child that were piled in the back seat. Ruby sat in the center. Her veil hung over her face and her buku, made of white roses and calla lilies, was discarded on her lap. Jo sat beside her with Genevieve on her lap and Lisa sat to her right. Ellen was in the front seat beside Bobby, who was dressed nicely in a suit and tie. "Yep," Ruby replied, flashing Bobby a smile through the thin material of the veil. She turned to face her daughter who was seated on Jo's lap. The young girl had a basket of flower petals slung over her little arm and had some white rose hair clips clipped in her fluffy dark hair. "Hey baby, you excited?" Jenny had first been confused at the sight of her mother wearing a wedding veil, but after Ruby used it for a few games of peekaboo, the young girl had got the idea. Jenny nodded quickly. "Me and Jo are gonna color and play with dolls during dinner." She pointed to a pink backpack that was discarded on the Impala floor. "That sounds like fun. Are you gonna dance though?" Ruby had flung the veil backwards so now her whole face was visible. "Definitely, Mama." As the bride and her bridesmaids drove towards Bobby's house in the Impala, the men were preparing their last-minute wedding changes. Sam glanced around the backyard, which had been made up with potted plants and rows of white seats. A tall arch covered with white roses stood at the end of a pavement path starting from Bobby's back door. Sam felt someone slap him on the back and he turned around to see Dean looking at him. "Sammy, you look pretty stressed for someone that's getting married in less than an hour. Some guests have already arrived, bro, and they don't want to look at a groom unclenchy." And clenching his fists like a schoolgirl. "Dean, do you think I look okay? My hair, my tux. Dude, this is way out of character for you. Just go in there and kiss your bride." The older Winchester smiled at his brother lovingly. Sam just nodded, decided to try something. "Bro, hug." Dean shook his head and gave his younger brother a quick hug. No one was watching, no one would know. "Balls." Bobby groaned as he pulled up in front of his house. "What's wrong, Bobby?" Ellen looked up from the book that she had been reading during the drive. The old hunter pointed to the driveway at the front of his house. "Someone had parked a Camry out front. Whoever that idiot that decided to park there is will have hell to pay." Ruby leaned forward from the back seat. She was feeling cramped and her legs had fallen asleep. "Just park it there." Ruby pointed to a spot on the curb. "Sam's probably wondering where I am." They had hit traffic and were supposed to be at the wedding 15 minutes earlier. Bobby muttered some obscenities under his breath and pulled the car over. He got out and opened the door for the women. Ruby stepped out and felt relief to finally be stretching her legs. She NCED over at the old car wreckers where she was going to get married. Ellen and Jo claimed that the backyard cleaned up nice, but the brunette still felt a bad case of nerves eating away at her stomach. Lisa strolled up behind the bride and tilted her tan head to the side. "Ruby, you feeling okay?" "Just nerves." She dropped the bunch of dress fabric, which she had been scrunching up in her hands, and smiled. Great, because you're gonna kick ass in there. I wish it was my wedding day. Lisa looked dreamy as Ruby decided she was envisioning her own special day. Maybe Dean might propose sometime soon. I wouldn't put my money on it. Lisa didn't sound 100% sure though. Ruby finally reached the back door of Bobby's house. It had taken her longer than expected due to the hassle of stepping in not one but two devil's traps that had still been under Bobby's mats. This was one of the times when she really wished that she was human like the rest of them. Joe opened the back door. Jenny stumbled through, still holding the basket of white rose petals. She dropped them slowly as she had been instructed and managed to flash her father and uncle huge smiles. Ruby saw Sam wave too. The young girl subtly and felt her heart swell. He was the best father that any child could possibly hope for. Just as Jenny reached her dad's side, the wedding march, which had been playing, grew louder. It was Ruby's cue to start. The petite brunette stepped out of the book door and slowly began to saunter toward her almost husband. Sam was dressed in a pristine black fitted tux with a small bunch of rose buds used as his boutonniere. His shoulder-length light brown hair fell in a gentle curve from the part in the middle and the ends rubbed against his suit collar. Ruby took in his perfect muscular form that she could almost make up beneath the suit and wondered how she could get so lucky. She was beautiful. Sam watched in awe as his baby's mother and almost wife stepped out from Bobby's backyard. He could almost sense the smile growing on his face as he examined her perfect petite form, which was filling out a floor-length gown. The dress was white with a satin ribbon around the waist and lace flowers embroidered over the white surfaces. Her long black hair was hanging loosely behind her shoulders and her smiling face was covered with a long white veil. Sam wondered how someone from hell could look so heavenly as he examined her white rose and calla lily bouquet that she was clutching in her tiny hands. After what seemed like a lifetime, Ruby was finally standing before him. They looked each other in the eyes before Sam held out both his hands for Ruby to take. She squeezed them with her own and their eye contact didn't flicker. "You look beautiful," Sam looked down at her and whispered. "You too," was her hushed reply. Rufus, Bobby's old hunting buddy and partner, stepped forward. After taking a course on the internet, he decided that he wanted to be their celebrant. Ruby and Sam weren't too sure at first, considering Rufus' somewhat questionable history, but decided to go with it because of Bobby and their slight money issues. The tall, African-American hunter was dressed in a suit and he was smiling a wide smile. "So today," he began in his strong accent, "we are here to marry Sam Winchester off to his fiancée Ruby." Rufus stood silent for a minute as he decided on what to say. "So if there is anyone who objects to this marriage, you may speak now or forever hold your peace." Both of the couple quickly cast their eyes over the guests seated in the audience. They mostly consisted of Sam's law school buddies and people from Ruby's work, but there were a few hunters that approved of Sam's marriage scattered around. Ruby squeezed Sam's hand and looked up at him. He smiled. They both decided that there probably wouldn't be anyone around who objected to the marriage that actually accepted their invitations. "Okay, so in that case," Rufus started up again, "you may say your vows." Without even giving it a second thought, Sam had decided that he wanted to write his vows personally. Ruby had taken some convincing, but she had pulled through also. Sam dropped his partner's hands and removed a small folded piece of notepad paper from his inner pocket. He unfolded it and cleared his throat. "So Ruby, I spent ages trying to decide on how to write you this, and what you are hearing now is what I decided to use. I'm not an author or poet, so this is obviously not my strong suit, but I wanted to write you something special. You see, us Winchesters don't why get married, but now I'm standing across from you and I have decided that I don't see a need in following that tradition. I fell in love with you when I first met you, your fiery attitude and smart QIPs were always entertaining, and more importantly, I remember how you were there for me that summer when Dean was away, and I don't think I could have gotten through it without you. We might have spent a bit too much time together during that summer though, because soon after you came to me bearing some news. I remember when you told me I was first going to be a dad, I never thought I would see that day." Sam paused and turned around for just long enough to flash Jenny, who was leaning against Joe's legs, a small smile. "After something happened to my first girlfriend Jess, I didn't think I could love again, and after what my brother and I went through, I doubted I wanted fate, but fate brought me to you. If everything didn't happen the way it did, I wouldn't have you, Ruby, I wouldn't have Jenny I'd take you two over the back roads of America any day. I promise to love, cherish and respect you for the rest of our lives, Ruby." He finished reading and refolded the paper. He gently stroked Ruby's bare shoulder with his hand and smiled softly at her. Ruby was smiling to herself from under her veil. She nodded at Sam and began to read her own page. So Sam Winchester, I'm actually marrying you. I'm marrying the same emotional, messed up but smart, beautiful and loving man that I managed to fall in love with. You're special, Sam, and you always want what's right, which is why I was surprised that you wanted me. You showed me love and treated me equally when no one else really did, and as you did those things I couldn't help but fall in love. Ruby paused and Sam looked down at her. She was crying. Through the tears Ruby continued to speak, with you. You show kindness, Sam, and you make one hell of a daddy for Jenny. I love you, and that's why today there is no one in the world that I'd rather be getting married to than you. Ruby finished and lifted a small hand up under her veil and wiped at her eyes. She was sobbing now. Sorry. Hey, don't cry, it's a happy day. Sam and over so that he was at her height and stroked at her cheek with his thumb. I am happy, Sam, that's why I'm crying. Sam reached out and wrapped his muscular arms around her. She leaned her head against his chest and continued to sob. Sam wiped at her cheeks one last time before he felt a tear roll down his own. Now you've gotten me crying. Ruby reached up and mirrored his movements on his cheek. She smiled at him and shook her head. Don't cry. The groom let go of his bride and they both regained their positions standing vertically opposite from each other. Rufus looked at the pair and nodded. So now all the dramatics are done. I have the most important question of the day. He turned to look at Sam. So do you, Samuel Winchester, take Ruby to be your lawfully wedded wife? Sam nodded at Ruby and squeezed her hands. I do. Quote, and do you, Ruby, take Sam Winchester to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. Ruby squeezed back. Rufus nodded proudly himself. I pronounce you husband and wife, you may kiss your bride. Sam leaned forward and scooped the veil off of Ruby's head, revealing a beautiful smile spread across her face. The ex-hunter leaned over so that they were at matching heights and pressed his lips to those of his wife. Ruby kissed back with equal passion and speed. The young man pressed one of his hands to his partner's cheeks and held her hand tightly with the other. Some of the wedding guests cheered and clapped and Dean made a wolf whistle with his fingers, but Sam and Ruby were immune to this. They were focused on each other and each other only. Can you believe that I actually married you? Ruby Winchester twisted her wedding ring around her ring finger and peered up at her husband. Ruby and Sam were both seated in the back of the Impala. Ben had brought them the rings. They had walked back down the aisle as a couple and about 1,000,000 wedding photos had been snapped. Ruby rested her head against Sam's chest and she felt him stroking her hair gently. Bobby was driving the newlyweds to the reception while the rest of the wedding party and guests took their own cars. I can't believe I married you either. Ruby, you really do look beautiful today. Seeing you walking down the aisle toward me made my traditionalist personality worthwhile. Sam wrapped his muscular arms around his tiny bride and pressed a kiss to the top of her head with his lips. You look great too. The tux, your hair, it's all wonderful. Ruby paused and ran her thin fingers through his long hair. Jenny did a great job with the flowers though, she looked like she was having a great time. Yeah, I was a bit worried about that. She's always been a little uneasy on her feet, but she managed. She looked beautiful like her mom, that little white dress and all that blackish brown hair. Oh, that reminds me, is Joe still okay for tonight? Ruby turned to look at the man who she had just married. Sam nodded. Yeah, I checked with her during wedding photos. She says that she's always wanted a little sister and that she's excited to look after Jenny. Ruby and Sam were going to spend the night at an inner-city apartment. The booking had been a gift from the entire bridal par. Tai, who insisted they deserved a break from being parents and needed to have a memorable wedding night. Neither Ruby nor Sam objected. Your vows were beautiful, Sam. I wish I could have written something that heartfelt. Ruby was gently stroking his tux-covered chest with her hand. What you wrote was perfect and it must have been heartfelt considering all that crying. Has my demon gone soft? He raised an eyebrow and smiled goofily. The brunette rolled her eyes. Shut up. She tried to sound stern, but Sam could see that she was laughing. They were cheered on as they entered the reception. It was held at a convention center and was set up beautifully. White tablecloth tables were spread out along the mahogany flooring and small fairy lights twinkled from the ceiling. The couple had decided to go without a theme, but despite that they had ended up with a real winter wonderland vibe. Some of Sam's law school classmates congratulated him on the wedding while Ruby received some hugs from the women she worked at the clothing store with. If an outsider walked in on this wedding they wouldn't see anything out of the ordinary. At that moment Ruby and Sam weren't an ex-hunter and a demo. And they were just two young people in love with dreams for the future and a rowdy bunch of friends and family. Hey Sammy, I still haven't gotten a chance to personally congratulate you. Dean gave his brother a slap on the back. The best man was already clutching a beer and his tie had been loosened. Thanks Dean, Sam smiled at his brother. Ruby and I have had a great time so far. The older win. Chester turned to face his now sister-in-law. You look great Ruby. Surprised with the compliment Ruby smiled, thanks. A sneaky smile spread across Dean's lips, great for a demon that is. Before his brother could scold him or Ruby could act unbride-like and slap some sense into him, Dean hurried off to find Lisa and Ben. Ruby turned to Sam, has he always been such a pain in the ass? Yep, for as long as I can remember. You're definitely my favorite Winchester brother. Ruby smiled. Well, I'd hope so. So congratulations on the whole wedding thing, it was so romantic, and Ruby, your crying made me feel like crying. Lisa hugged her friend quickly. Dean's girlfriend was clutching a glass of Shiraz and she had a huge smile on her face. Ruby hadn't originally got along with any of Sam's female acquaintances, but there was something about Lisa that she liked. The yoga instructor had helped her out during her pregnancy and Ruby found it nice to have a female that she could talk with about those types of things. Thanks. She paused, so I didn't look stupid. Lisa shook her head quickly, no way. You looked like someone who was in love. Ruby lifted her glass of champagne to her lips and shook out her mane of black hairs. You're a great friend Lisa, thanks for all the help with the wedding. Ben's mom threw her hand back casually, no problems. It was great to be of help. She paused and cast her eyes over Dean and Ben who were seated at the table. Ruby, I better go, they look like they're having an hors d'oeuvres eating competition and I need to stop them before they choke. Honestly, it's like having two kids. Ruby nodded and quickly checked on her own child who was busy coloring in a kitten with Joe. Okay, you go do that, I just need to find the husband. The brunette strolled away from Lisa and listened to the soft taps of her white wedding pumps against the floorboards. She hurried over to Genevieve and Joe and sat at the bridal table in her allocated seat. Oh, on one side of Ruby sat Sam and on the other sat her daughter. Hey Jenny, hey Joe. Ruby waved at her young daughter and the young woman who was coloring alongside her. Genevieve looked up at her. Why were you crying when you were telling Daddy you love him? Ruby shook her head. Happy tears baby. Genevieve seemed pleased with her answer and leaned over so that she could climb onto her mother's lap. You look pretty mommy. Thanks, the brunette gently stroked her daughter's hair. There you are, I was looking for you everywhere. Sam sat himself down beside Ruby. Where were you, T? Bride placed her champagne down on the table and took one of Sam's hands in hers. I was talking to Castiel who still doesn't understand what a wedding is and also to one of the guys that I go to school with who was wishing me luck for the future. Sam took his own glass of champagne and held it up to Ruby. To us, she repeated and they clinked their glasses. The wedding party A&D guests helped themselves to a hearty meal consisting of a few choices of multiple entrees, mains and desserts. The caterers had taken away all of the dessert plates and Ruby and Sam were standing around in front of the cake table. Sam was clutching a kitchen knife to his side and was examining the wedding cake. It was a 3-tier cake covered with white icing and intricate blue snowflakes. It complemented the winter theme nicely. The guests cheered as they watched the newlyweds standing before his cake. Ruby and Sam's fingers intertwined as they both gripped the knife's handle. Wow, this is different, Ruby whispered as she looked from the knife to her husband. I'm so used to using one of these to kill demons, not to slice cake. Sam laughed softly under his breath. This is much better though. They slowly maneuvered the knife into the soft sponge white cake and received some claps from the onlookers. Ruby leaned against Sam and smiled toward her guests. So who wants some cake? The caterers took the cake to be cut into enough pieces for everyone while Ruby and Sam called all of their guests to gather around for the bouquet toss. The brunette spun the flowers around in her hand as she looked at her guests. Okay, so whoever catches this should be the next person to get married. After receiving a series of nods, she spun around so that she faced the far wall and tossed the bouquet over her shoulder. The floral bunch flew through the room and Ruby watched as the guests, mostly women, reached out to grab it. Oh my God, Lisa shrieked as the bouquet landed in her hands. The maid of honor turned to her boyfriend and waved the flowers before him. So maybe this is a little something for you to think about. Ruby and Sam saw Dean blush. After the cake was eaten, it was time for the first dance. Sam pulled his tuxedo jacket back on over his shoulder and reached out for Ruby to take his hand. The brunette accepted his offer and stepped out onto the dance floor. She was feeling self-conscious as she grabbed her husband's hand and tried to channel everything that she had learned in their dance lessons. Their bridal waltz, Joshua Caddison's Beautiful in My Eyes, began to play. You're my peace of mind in this crazy world. You're everything I've tried to find. Sam grabbed both of her hands tightly and began to guide in the steps that they had used. Ruby stepped forward slowly and followed his movements as she felt him sway her back and forth to the music. Your love is a pearl. You're my Mona Lisa. You're my rainbow skies. And my only prayer is that you realize. You'll always be beautiful in my eyes. The pair ditched their choreographed movements and Ruby felt Sam's large hands against her tiny back. You will always be beautiful in my eyes. And the posse, in years will show that you will always grow ever more beautiful in my eyes. Ruby's head was now against Sam's broad, muscular chest and she could feel him stroking her long, black hair. She closed her eyes and ignored everything else beside the man who she was leaning against. Their wedding waltz soon ended and the rest of the guests joined them on the dance floor. A variety of music began to play, which consisted of modern hits that Sam enjoyed, some romantic songs and even some classic rock that Dean favored. Ruby watched Dean dance with Lisa and Joe as she whirled Genevieve around. She and Sam both appeared surprised as they observed Bobby slow dancing with Jody Mills, a much younger sheriff friend of him and the brothers. You danced well. Sam was slow dancing with his bride as a Whitney Houston song was playing. No, I didn't. I forgot the choreography. She leaned her head into his chest. I forgot as well. I don't think it mattered. Ruby nestled even closer to the man. I love you, Sam. And you're a really special person. Sam stroked Ruby's bare shoulder bones. I love you too, Ruby. Thank you for such a special day. Hey, you're welcome. You're the one that proposed. And if you think today was special, just get ready for tonight. The tall man bent over and cupped his wife's face in his large hands. He pressed his lips to hers. I can tell I'm going to love this marriage. Ruby nibbled at his lips softly as she leaned in for a kiss. Me too. The end.